In 2019, a full-size prototype of America's next fighter jet lifted off a runway in the Nevada desert and flew. Then, it did it again. And again, for years, breaking records the Air Force still will not describe. And almost no one on Earth was allowed to know it existed. It had no name you could look up, no photograph, no press release. Just a shape over the desert that the government would not admit was there. The jet it was testing is now called the F-47. Boeing builds it. It is the most expensive fighter America has ever ordered, about $20 billion just to finish the design. But here is the part that should stop you. When they finally unveiled it in March of 2025 and called it brand new, it had already been flying, in secret, for about 6 years. And the jet they showed you that day was not even the secret part. By the end of this, you will understand the rule the whole black budget runs on, why the newest machine you ever hear about is almost always old news to the people who built it. Let us start in that Oval Office. March 21st, 2025. The President stands up and announces that the Air Force's next air superiority fighter, a program called Next Generation Air Dominance, has gone to Boeing. It gets a designation on the spot, the F-47. The contract is worth around $20 billion, and that is only to develop it. Build the whole fleet, and the number climbs into the hundreds of billions. Each jet is expected to cost upwards of $300 million. They plan to buy more than 185 of them to replace the F-22 Raptor. Even the name was a small mystery. The Air Force said the 47 honored an old World War II fighter, the service's founding year of 1947, and the 47th president who backed it. But internal emails, later pried loose under public records law, tell a stranger story. Officials seemed caught off guard and scrambled that same day to build the history around a name they had already been handed. The Chief of Staff reportedly asked for a rushed briefing on the old P-47, hours before he had to explain the new one. So even the paperwork was improvised. The airplane was not. Because in the middle of that announcement, an agency you rarely hear from quietly confirmed something remarkable, that the jet had a ghost. The agency is DARPA, the Pentagon's Far Side research shop. And on the day of the award, DARPA admitted it had secretly funded and flown 2 full-size prototypes for this program. One built by Boeing, which first flew in 2019. One built by Lockheed, which first flew in 2022. Each had logged hundreds of hours in the air. Boeing's prototype flew in 2019. You were told in 2025. 6 years. We got one hint, and it is worth hearing in his exact words. Back in September of 2020, the Air Force's top acquisition official, a man named Will Roper, let one sentence slip. Quote, "We have already built and flown a full-scale flight demonstrator in the real world, and we broke records in doing it." And then he refused to say anything else. Not who built it, not what it looked like, not whether a human was even inside it, not where it flew, or what records it broke. Just, we did it. It was amazing, and you cannot know. The Air Force Chief of Staff later put it plainly. For 5 years, he said, these X-planes had been quietly laying the foundation for the F-47, flying hundreds of hours in the dark. So how do you build and fly a brand new fighter without anyone noticing? Part of the answer is a genuinely clever trick. They built the jet inside a computer first, a perfect digital twin, flown thousands of times in simulation, refined virtually, long before a single real part was cut. It let them go from idea to a real jet in the sky startlingly fast, and it let them do it in the dark. Now, if all of this feels strange, a finished warplane flying for years while the public knows nothing, here is what you have to understand. This is not the exception. This is the rule. Go back and look. In 1981, the F-117 made its first flight over the same Nevada ranges. The first true stealth fighter, a black faceted arrowhead. The public did not see a single photo of it until 1988. 7 years, flying only at night, while the country argued about lights in the desert. Then there was the bird of prey, a smooth, hunched little demonstrator Boeing flew starting in 1996 to test new stealth shapes. It flew for years and was not shown to the public until 2002. 6 years hidden. The same gap, almost to the year, as the jet we are talking about now. And the record holder? A strange machine called Tacit Blue, nicknamed the Whale. It first flew in 1982, and the Air Force did not admit it existed until 1996. 14 years. It proved you could hide a curved aircraft from radar, and that work led straight to the B-2 bomber. So, a secret jet flying for 6 years is not a scandal. In this world, it is a Tuesday. But every one of those planes eventually got a reveal. A a press conference, a grainy photo, a name, which raises the darker question. What about the ones that never get that? The machines that fly and are simply never admitted to at all. For that, let me show you the plane that officially does not exist. Its name, as far as anyone can tell, is the RQ-180. Back in December of 2013, the trade magazine Aviation Week broke a story. Northrop Grumman, they reported, had secretly built an enormous stealth spy drone, a flying wing designed to slip past the best air defenses on Earth and photograph places nothing else could reach. The people around it had a nickname, the Great White Bat. And there are breadcrumbs. In 2019, the Air Force stood up a new reconnaissance squadron at Beale Air Force Base. Its official insignia? A large white bat. An Air Force Heritage video even said out loud that balloons and biplanes had been replaced by, quote, white bats. Over the years, this thing has reportedly been photographed. A flying wing shape over the Mojave in 2020, over the Philippines in 2021, over Area 51 itself. And just this year, in 2026, a shape matching it was seen landing at an airbase in Greece after cargo planes had been shuttling back and forth from a California test base for weeks. And after all of that, more than a decade of sightings, a squadron, a nickname, a bat on a patch, the United States Air Force has still never once admitted the RQ-180 is real. Sit with that. This is not a rumor about missing paperwork. This is a full-size aircraft apparently flying on multiple continents that officially is not there. The reveal that came for the F-117, for the Whale, for the Bird of Prey, for this one, it may simply never come. Which brings us back to the F-47 and the question you should actually be asking. If they will hide a whole plane for 13 years, why spend $20 billion to announce this one at all? Follow the money and it starts to make sense, because this jet very nearly did not happen. In the summer of 2024, the program almost died. The Air Force Secretary at the time, Frank Kendall, hit pause on the whole thing. The reason was cost. At $300 million a jet, he was not sure it was worth it. He put the choice in brutally simple terms. Given $200 million, he asked, what would you buy? One of these, or one cheaper fighter and 4 robot drones? That question is the whole future of air combat in one sentence. Because the F-47 is not meant to fly alone. It is built to be a quarterback. It flies at the front and controls a small swarm of uncrewed drones called collaborative combat aircraft that scout ahead, jam radars, and take the risks a human should not. 2 of them are already flying. One nicknamed Dark Merlin, one nicknamed Fury, both of which first flew in 2025. The Air Force wants around 1,000 of them, at roughly $30 million each. Cheap enough to lose. They call it affordable mass. And the F-47 itself is built to fix the one thing the old F-22 could not: distance. The Raptor was sized for the short hops of Europe, but the Pacific is enormous. So the new jet is meant to fly more than 1,000 miles out and back, about 70% farther than the F-22, on engines that can shift their own internals in flight, sipping fuel for range 1 second, roaring for power the next. So the answer to why announce it is almost human. They spent the money to prove the machine, then needed far more to build it. So for once, they had to show you. Congress poured somewhere between $3 and $3.5 billion into the F-47 this year alone, plus hundreds of millions more for the drones. You cannot fund something that loudly and keep it a ghost. But do not mistake the announcement for the whole truth, because here is the last twist, and it is almost funny. The F-47 has not actually flown yet. The first real one is not expected to leave the ground until 2028, and it will not be out in numbers until the mid-2030s. And the 2 official pictures the Air Force has released, they quietly admit those do not really show what it looks like. So, how do we know anything about its true shape? From a patch. In June of 2026, sharp-eyed analysts noticed that the F-47 program office's own uniform patch, a stylized Firebird, had the jet's real outline hidden inside it. The canards up front, the tailless back end, the drooping wingtips. The engineers had smuggled the truth into a shoulder patch. The exact same trick, it turns out, that the Bird of Prey team pulled decades ago. The most honest look we have gotten at a $20 billion airplane is a doodle on a sleeve. So here's the verdict. The F-47 is not really a story about a fighter jet. It is a story about a rule. In the black world, the machine always comes first. The flying, the testing, the records, all of it happens in the dark, for years, before a single word reaches you. The announcement is not the beginning. It is the moment they finally need your money. By the time they tell you a plane exists, it is old news to the few who built it. And some of what they build, the bat over Greece, the shapes that never get a name, they will simply never tell you about at all. So, real question, now that you know the pattern, how many machines do you think are up there right now, flying, that we will not hear a word about for another 10 years? If you would rather see the tech while it is still a secret than read about it a decade too late, subscribe. So the next thing they built in the dark is one you get to see in the light. See you in the next one.